Sky Knitting Podcast. My name is Rachel. I am your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada, and this channel serves as my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting, because if I don't have an outlet, I will ruin all of my relationships by talking way too much about knitting. Today is sometime in the first week of October, and I'm filming an update a little bit sooner than I normally do for these, which typically run at about once every 3 weeks, because I'm about to have some time off and a lot of travel time. I'm anticipating getting a lot more time than usual to spend knitting, and I thought it would be useful to future me to film a check-in now, so that I have much less to show you in a little bit when I come back from my time off, and we'll hopefully have a lot more to show you then, if that makes sense. So, what are some other things that I normally try and say in my intro? I have a 34-inch bust, which I'm pretty sure is 86 centimeters. Bang on, doesn't fluctuate. Even when I think that it does, it doesn't. I have about a 30-inch under bust and like a 29-inch waist, more or less. And I'm like 5'1 3/4. I'm 156 or 157 centimeters tall. So that's roughly the proportions you're looking at. What else? All yarns and patterns will be linked in the description box below, as well as like anything else I talk about. And really happy to have you here. Let's get right on into it. So my first finished object of two, I have two finished objects, is the Mauricia socks by Vert and Rose, whose real name is Alexandra, that I spent like 15 minutes of my last episode talking about how I did not want to continue working on. I just kind of started doing it while I was editing and uploading that video, which always takes forever because all my videos are really long. And a day and a half of somewhat focused knitting later, I had a full pair of socks. So it has this really fun folded picot edge, and then this faux cable detail in a 3x1 rib, traditional slip stitch heel flap and gusset pattern, and then you know, that's kind of the sock. I think it has a lot of fun design details without being particularly difficult. And I just kind of lost my sock mojo for a little bit after knitting like 5 or 6 pairs this summer. And so I took a break, but then now I'm back. And I have a finished pair of socks that are kind of, like you can see here, there's a lot of rubbing, because I've been wearing these with my Birkenstocks. But yeah, I've been wearing them, I've been enjoying them. The yarn is a Love Stitch Fibers one-of-a-kind / oopsie skein that I got for a low price last year. And then both of the contrast colors, you can see I've ran out here on this heel, which doesn't bother me. I kind of went into it knowing this would happen. The contrast colors for the picot and the heels are leftover Luck of the Draw Yarn Club sock minis from Emily C. Gillies. It's one of my favorite, formerly of the Toronto area, indie dyers. They've relocated to, I said it was New Brunswick the last time I talked about this, but it's actually Nova Scotia, to the Halifax area, which is kind of across Canada from me. And I love their eye for color. I love a sock mini, so I use that here. And I think it goes really nicely with like the pops of blue. Where's a better one? The pops of blue that you get from the Love Stitch. So yeah, I finished socks, and that's nice. The other finished object that I have is, well, it's like 99% done, is the Aosta cushion pillow cover that I knit in a mystery cone of vibrant pink lace weight yarn that I got from a neighbor who was destashing, who just kind of gave it to me, which was really, really nice. This pattern is meant to be knit at a chunky gauge using 7mm needles. However, I really wanted to use this yarn. I had to quadruple it to even kind of get to like an Aran weight. So I used 5mm needles holding lace weight. Here you can still see it's doubled. Holding lace weight quadrupled. And I went up one size in order to get the actual shape that I wanted, and it worked out pretty perfectly. So I have the pillow behind me for demonstration purposes. Here's the pillow that this is meant to adorn. It's an insert. You can see it's kind of not very pillowy. It's just, well, it's meant to be covered by something. And so this makes it a lot plumper. And you're supposed to Kitchener the top around the insert that you chose, but we eat a lot on our couch, and I know that it's only a matter of time until this pillow gets kind of grimy. And so what my plan is instead is to kind of sew a couple inches on either side together using the leftovers, which literally this is it. I played the most successful game of yarn chicken in my life. It was absolutely perfect. I had exactly the amount of I needed, no leftovers, not including I do have a swatch. But I'm gonna sew a couple ends, sew a couple inches on either side of it, kind of like a duvet cover, and then my roommate has some snaps at her parents' house, like snap buttons, that we're going to put on here so we can take it on and off to wash. So basically like a duvet cover is the plan, but pillow looks much better. It suits our living room really, really well, and I'm just waiting on my roommate to go to her parents, retrieve the snaps to finish this off. So overall, a winner. I'm quite pleased. The yarn's out of stash, went to a great use. I think this is so fun, and this was a really, really enjoyable knit. And this is the Aosta cushion by Sophie Hemmings, aka the Knit Pearl Girl. I really like knitting homeware and crocheting homeware. I think it makes our place a lot warmer and cozier, because we are a household of, if it is cold, first put on a sweater and a blanket and grab one of these guys, then turn up the thermostat. So this aids in that goal of keeping our energy built down. Those are my two finished objects. I have a bunch of whips right now. I think 5 or 6 total. A bunch of those are currently currently like lightly on hold. I haven't worked on them in like a week because I have shifted my priorities just a smidge. So first work in progress that I have been prioritizing recently are my grandfather's socks, which are a DK weight sock that it's a 3x1 rib for the cuff going down the foot and the leg, slip stitch heel, pretty standard stuff. For my grandfather, this is West Yorkshire Spinners Air Valley DK. And this yarn is left over from his other pair of socks that I made him last year. I'm currently on the toe decreases. I've just started them. And I am quite concerned that I'm going to run out of yarn, because I have enough for the heels, toes, and cuffs, but I'm quite concerned I don't have enough of the rainbow, because this is all I have left. And as you can see, oh yeah, look more gray. As you can see, I'm making these very big because my grandfather unfortunately suffers from rather swollen calves and ankles and feet as the result of a surgery from a few years ago. So they gotta be big. So I actually started the gray a few rows before the real toe decreases, which might look a little bit funky, but I'm hoping to just kind of extend this as much as possible. I might make the cuff of the second sock a little, like the gray, a little bit longer too, to again just try and save as much of this as possible. I might preemptively order a second skein of the rainbow just in case, but I would like to avoid that if possible. So yeah, last time I showed you this, I think I was just like a couple rows of the heel flap away from being done. So I've been working on this when I want a little bit more than stockinette in the round, but I don't have the capacity in my brain to work on anything particularly complicated, because, I mean, we all say this every year, don't we? But I would like to not be stressed and rushing with the gift knits. So I'd like to get this pair done by the end of October. And if I don't run out of yarn, I think that's very much a doable goal, because they're a DK weight sock. The leg is at a 68 stitch circumference. I decreased down to I think a 58 and then slowly to a 52, or as the foot continues. I think that's what I did last time, hope it's what I did last time, and I hope that it is successful. So that is my first whip that has been active recently. My second actually active whip that you might remember if you watched my last episode is my Cumulus blouse by Petite Knit that I'm knitting in this Noro Kakigori yarn. So this is in the color Fukuyama, and I have sized down for this pattern on the recommendation of others, and also because I'm once again playing yarn chicken. So this I have knit, I cast on for an extra small, and then, sorry, there's so much yarn just kind of flying around because of the sleeves being on hold. I originally cast on for an extra small, and then I did a couple more rounds of increases along the raglan before splitting for sleeves to bring it a little bit closer to a small, so it's in between an extra small and a small, because a lot of people have said that this pattern runs large, and again, I'm at risk of running out of yarn. I have been really enjoying this. I really like the feel of the yarn. I like how the colors have kind of ended up looking. I think this is a very good, I found this to be engaging. Sometimes you just want a little stockinette in the round, you know? And with the yarn being as dynamic as it is, with change in texture every so often and a lot of color shifts, that's pretty much been enough to make knitting in the round still engaging for me. And also most of the yoke is knit flat, which is a nice change sometimes because of the V-neck. The V-neck looks pretty severe right now because I haven't applied the I-cord neckline yet, but once I finish the body, I'll get there. Other modifications I have made, I have been decreasing by 4 stitches every inch for the first 4 inches of the body, because it was looking pretty big for what I wanted, and also I weighed my ball of yarn after I knit the first inch on the body to get an idea of how much yarn it was using up, and 1 inch on the body with the stitch count 4 stitches more than the stitch count for an extra small. I was using about just under 10 grams per inch, and so I did some thinking in my brain of how long I wanted it to be in terms of inches and how many grams of yarn that was going to take up, and I thought that's kind of cutting it a little bit close to make sure I have enough for the sleeves. And I don't mind if this is going to be a short-sleeved blouse anyway, it's meant to be a summer garment. So I started decreasing a little bit, A, to kind of make it a little bit more of a tapered towards the waist fit, and B, to save some stitches for later on in the pattern to make this yarn go as far as I possibly can. So I think I've decreased overall 24 stitches, and I think you can see it. Can you see that taper in the waist a little bit? I know that it's kind of hidden by the fact that the stitches are kind of scrunched on the cable, but I think you can see it a little bit. And so overall, I'm knitting this at a tighter gauge with less ease and a more summery fabric, which I realized is just kind of giving me the effect of a Cumulus tee, except I'm using the Cumulus blouse pattern, which I do think is kind of funny. But I think that this is going to work really well, and I have knit all this, like the last time I showed you guys this, I had just separated for sleeves and cast on for the underarms, but I had not even knit those newly cast on stitches, so all of this has been done in the past like week and a half, 2 weeks or whatever. As my meeting knitting, my phone call knitting, comfort knitting before bed kind of thing, and I weighed it, and I think I have enough that I'm going to get the exact garment I want. Like this will be cropped, but it was meant to be cropped. And then I think I will maybe get sleeves that come to just about the elbow, which is about what the Cumulus blouse does. It's supposed to be just past the elbow. If I get it just before the elbow, that'll work too, because this is a blend of, I think it's 50% silk, 30% cotton, 10% viscose, and 10% nylon. So it feels so nice, but it's a summer fiber. and so I don't necessarily need very long sleeves. And my goal is to finish this in the next little while before I go visit my dad in Florida, where the forecast still has the high at like 29 degrees every day. So I'd like to be able to wear this then, because otherwise if I don't finish it in time to go to South Florida, I probably will not wear this until May, and I would like to wear it. So yeah, that's my immediate priority for the time being, and this is going to be my go-to anytime I have time to knit. It'll be this guy. I think I have another like 2.5, 3 inches of the body, and then I'm going to do the I-cord for the neck, and then split the remainder of the yarn in 2 balls, and then just knit the sleeves as long as they go. I will say one thing about this is I really like the way the yarn looks, more than I kind of thought that I would, because I've always admired Noro colors, but not really thought I would wear them. I think I'll wear this. I think it'll be really nice. But it's kind of ropey. I normally have the problem as a left-handed knitter that things untwist and unply as I knit them, and this one is like over-plying, over-twisting almost. So sometimes I get to particularly like ropey portions like this, and I have to spend a lot of time untwisting the yarn and then knitting it, and it feels like for some sections I'm spending as much time fixing the yarn as I am knitting. But for the most part, this actually has not been bothering me. Maybe because I'm only dealing with 1 strand. Like if I had to do this with 2 strands or color work, that would drive me absolutely bananas, but for this it's been a-okay. So yeah, hopefully in the next video I will be wearing my finished cumulus, but we'll see. And the last work in progress that's seen any action that I would like to show you is a fresh cast on, actually. So in the last video, I showed you that my friend brought me 2 100% acrylic yarns that she used to make mittens a few years ago that she just kind of wanted out of her house because a dear friend of hers and a sort of friend of mine is having her first child, and we thought it would be good baby yarn for a wee one, because the last episode I said we didn't know what this was, but my friend went looking because she knew she got it from Michael's, and she went looking and she's pretty sure that this is like a Bernat baby yarn. Of course, I have now forgotten the name that she texted me, but I don't think that Michael's stocks a ton of DK weight, so it's the Bernat 100% premium acrylic, like baby softy yarn maybe. And it's been very pleasant to knit with. I don't knit with a lot of acrylic because if I sweat, then I smell. Sorry, but that is the truth of it. But this has been like pleasant to knit with. It's not very splitty, glides well. Sometimes in the past when people have complained about the squeak of acrylic yarn, I have thought that they were maybe just kind of exaggerating a little bit, or just kind of being snobby. No, this is squeaky. Like, it actively squeaks on my needle sometimes, and then I giggle. I think that's so funny. But using these 2. And then my friends and I, when they came to visit a few weeks ago, we went thrifting and we did pick up some yarn. And this was in a bag with another ball that was my actual priority, which I will show you in a bit in acquisitions. But it's a DK, it didn't have a label, but it really feels like a cotton acrylic blend in this nice kind of cornflower blue. And I didn't show you guys this in the last episode because it was in the freezer to prevent any type of moth situation in my house. But these 3 yarns I have cast on together to make a little baby sweater. And this has started a bit of a baby knitting craze for me. This has been so much fun. It's so little, and every section goes by so quickly, so it's so engaging. Okay, so this is a free pattern. It's called The Good Old Raglan by Joanna something. It will be linked down below. I don't like forgetting people's names. That's unfortunate. But it's a free pattern that goes from newborn sizes to 14-year-olds. So babies, kids, the whole shebang. It includes short row shaping in the back, and it's just like a basic raglan pattern, which I found very, very useful. I'm knitting this in the size 1 to 2 years because the baby is due in January. And I imagine the parents will be given a lot of first-year clothing, but I wanted something that would A, use up as close to all of this yarn as possible because I can't think of another use for it, and B, be something for his second winter. And maybe he'll grow into it, and also I'd rather err on the side of too big so he can grow into it as opposed to too small and then it's a waste. So also this pattern, it's meant to be more of like a Breton stripe type deal where the yoke is all one color and then you start the stripes after you separate for the sleeves. And the sleeves are meant to be narrower by 2 rows. I can tell you because it's a free pattern, but it's meant to be 9 rows main color, 3 rows stripe, 9 rows, and I instead did 5 rows stripe, 7 rows main color. Because looking at the yarn estimates, I did not have enough of the main color going by the striping that the designer recommends, and I had a ton more. I had basically double the amount of contrast needed. And again, I wanted to use up as much of this as possible. And I also wanted to integrate this because these are pretty colors, but as my dad said when I showed him this on a video call recently, like, oh, those are pretty somber colors for a baby. And I was like, I totally agree. So by bringing this in for sleeves, cuffs, hems, collars, and bringing the stripes in earlier and making them thicker, my hope is to maximize use of this yarn and also make it just like a little bit more fun. So what I'm doing is 2 stripes white, 1 stripe blue, 2 stripes white, 1 stripe blue. Then once I finish this blue stripe, I think I have 1 or 2 more white stripes, and then I will do the bottom hem in this blue as well, and then do the same for the sleeves. This has been very engaging. The stripes make it feel like I'm not just knitting in the round. It adds a lot of excitement and I can see my progress very clearly. And it's very soft, which will be good for him. I think it'll be nice and warm and it'll be very, very easy for the parents to care for because it is 100% acrylic. And it's a good stash buster because my friend has had these 2 bows in her house for like 4 years and she's sick of them. And I didn't really have another use for this guy. Because again, I thrifted it to get the other yarn that was in the bag. And so this will be a nice stash buster. And also I'm planning like so many other things for this baby. I think this baby's also going to get an Aosta baby sweater from me once that pattern releases in a couple weeks. Using some yarn, a skein of Barocco Vintage DK left over from the Anchor Boyfriend's Size sweater by Petite Knit that I knit for my boyfriend for our anniversary this year. I had a whole skein of it and then it got horrifically tangled so I couldn't return it, and it's just been taking up a massive amount of space in my closet. So that's going to be a baby sweater, and I'm thinking leftover like baby booties, a little hat. Who is to say? I really hope that this family doesn't think I'm obsessed with them. It's just that I'm obsessed with knitting, and it turns out that baby knits are wildly satisfying and also maybe the answer to many of my leftover / scrap yarn woes. So yeah, it also hit me last week when I was in the office that many of my coworkers have children. Many of my coworkers have small children, and we live in Ottawa, and these children are probably in need of some hats, socks, and sweaters. So I think I'm just going to be a menace in terms of gifting unsolicited knitwear to any person I know who has a child for like a while. Okay, those are kind of all my whips that I feel like I actually want to show you because, oh, that's not true. Sorry, I just moved something in the acquisitions pile, which is bigger than it should be, and revealed a little whip. So I've been planning my trip knitting because I will have a lot of time in just travel time, transport time. And I feel like, okay, I wanted to cast this on so that it was ready, it was in position. And this is an acorn sock by Amanita Knits, which is my first ever toe-up sock pattern. And I'm knitting this in Artful Yarns, the Bell base, which is a sock. Why am I guessing? I have it in here. Yeah, Artful Yarns, the Bell base, which is an 80/20 merino nylon that I received as a gift from my mother last year in the color Cabernet, which I'm kind of obsessed with. I have had this wound up in a ball to be cast on in this exact sock for a while. I just kept like putting off the selfish sock knitting to do other stuff, but no. My sock knitting mojo has returned, but it currently feels very fragile. And I thought the best way to encourage it to stick around was A, to do something fun, funky, and fresh, aka braid my first toe-up sock, and B, use a yarn that I love. So I cast these on to have them started so I can just kind of pick them up, know what the pattern is, go, go, go while I'm on the road. Also because this yarn, I really do love this color, but it's kind of hard to see my stitches. It's a little bit more purple in person, I would say. And so I thought that this would be an ideal Falling Leaves Sock Knit Along 2022, hosted by the Earth Tones girl, because it's an acorn sock in a very autumnal color, but also because it's a very autumnal color, and my eyes are not so good, I thought this would be the ideal thing to knit in the Florida sunshine. So get these done in full light while I can, and then I have these to wear forever. I'm knitting these in the second size on 2mm needles for the first time in a test to see if I prefer a denser sock on a larger stitch count. And because this is a merino base, I really want these to be denser because I want them to last longer. And merino is not the hardest wearing of wools. So that is my last work in progress, which I think is a nice transition to travel knitting plans. So I am flying to my father's in Florida, but there are no flights that are kind of convenient from Ottawa to Florida. And so I'm making a pit stop in Toronto for a very brief amount of time for holiday, for seeing my mom and my brother and my boyfriend, for appointments, and to fly out of there. Which means first I have to get to Toronto from Ottawa, and then I have to fly to Toronto, from Toronto to my father's. So and then I have to do all this on the way back too. So all of this means I have a lot of time to knit. And while I'm trying to pack light, I also live in fear of running out of knitting, but I also don't want to pack too much and not have enough space because I have yarn waiting for me in both of these destinations. Because there have been sales, and I have had gift cards to use, and I purchased yarn. So, number 1, acorn sock. We'll be knitting this for myself. Number 2, second of my grandfather's socks will be knit during this trip. Third, I'm going to cast on a shell bra by Naked Knit, which I've been meaning to do, in this Holst Coast in the color Powder. So, I'm going to bring that too. 4, my mom's top that I have been knitting in secret. I'm going to bring that too. And 5, my father is finally letting me make him something. It's not that he has a problem with he's very supportive of my crafting. Both my parents are, my whole family is, everyone around me is very supportive. However, my dad lives in a very warm, humid climate, and he just doesn't really have any need for knitwear. And he's always like, nah, save your time, knit stuff for yourself. But he has a very mischievous little cat who likes to chew things, and so my father has asked if I have time to make him some armrests that we can then attach to his preferred leather chair that this cat is currently munching on to discourage the munching because the cat doesn't like to munch. His name is Tinky. Tinky doesn't like to munch on fabric. He likes leather or rubber, which is of course very bad for him and very annoying to my dad. So I have shipped some Knit Picks yarn to my father's so that I can hopefully crochet up some armrests, and then we're going to Velcro it in place, and that's another project that I have planned. So those are my travel knitting plans. Oh, I'm also going to bring my leftover Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair and merino from my Cargill sweater from last episode, which is somewhere behind me. Not the sweater, the yarn. Because a lot of what I have planned are very small needle projects. This is a 3mm project. This is a 2mm project. My mom's top is a 3mm project. And my grandfather's socks are a 3.25mm project. So that'll be a 3.75mm project. The hat, just to give myself a little bit more variety in terms of like motions and knitting, to give hopefully my arms and elbows a bit of a rest, and also so I don't do that thing where I subconsciously bring my knitting closer and closer to my face and then hunch in a really bad posture as I try and see my stitches, because once again, my eyes are not so good. So those are my travel knitting plans. I really wanted to see if I could get a lot of gift knitting done during this time with a good balance of special things for Rachel, but I wanted to pack things that are smaller, like one ball projects, all of which I just listed are, except for the hat, but that's such a small thing anyway, so that things are a little bit easier on myself in terms of packing, so I don't have to deal with balls of yarn flying everywhere. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be really nice to have some downtime. I haven't actually had a lot of time off since February, because of school and then diving immediately into work and then continuing working. I did take 2 days off at the beginning of August to go up to Algonquin Park with my boyfriend and his family, and there have been long weekends and there have been slower periods at work, but I haven't actually taken more than 2 days off since February, and so I'm very much looking forward to spending some time with my family. Acquisitions. Okay, we're going to start with the thrifted yarn because I think it's really fun. So we were in Value Village in Ottawa South, which is, I'm telling you all my secrets, but one of my preferred thrift stores in Ottawa because it's huge and they have good like workwear stuff. And my friends really wanted to go Ottawa thrifting because I think Ottawa thrifting is a little bit better than Toronto or Montreal thrifting because it's a little bit less picked over. And I have often found hand knit garments there, but I have not found a lot of good yarn at all. Very often it's just like 1 or 2 balls, and it's usually colors that don't really call to me or in weird quantities that I don't think I can really make anything with, and a lot of acrylic and a lot of crochet cotton. So if you're looking for those things, the Ottawa South thrift store, Value Village, is a good place to be if you're looking for like hand knit garments or craft books or things like that, but I don't typically find amazing yarn there. Big bags of buttons though, but today, this last trip, I actually did find yarn, which is funny. We were looking, and then my friend who also knits was like, oh, look, Rachel, there's yarn. And I was like, oh, yeah, there is, but it's not very good. And oh, wait, look at that. So the two of us I immediately see this, which is a Drops Fable colorway of sock yarn that I've kind of had my eye on for like a year and a half. I'm pretty sure that Emily of High Fiber Knits, do I ever go an episode without talking about Emily? I hope she doesn't think I'm obsessed with her. Hi, Emily. I'm pretty sure Emily knit her first pair of socks, or a early pair of socks, with like this exact colorway, and so did at least one other knitting podcaster that I watch. But my cursory search, I didn't find a lot of Drops Fable available to me in Canada. And I have so many other self-striping, self-patterning sock yarns, or just sock yarns in general, that it wasn't a high priority. But this was just for sale, and it's I waited afterwards, but I could tell that it was pretty much a full ball. It was on sale for $2, along with, so these two were packaged together for $2. So I got baby knitting stuff, but also a pair of socks that I've really been after. And then this is like 46 grams or 47. I think someone just maybe knit a little swatch and then decided they didn't like it. So their loss, or their donation, is my gain for $2. But it was in the freezer last episode, so I couldn't show you. And then that was very exciting for me because that's something I've actively had my eye on. Like, how often do you go to the thrift store and find an exact garment or a homeware item or yarn that you have identified in the past as wanting? Like, I usually find like unexpected treasures there, or I have the idea that I want a coat and then I find one, but not like the particular coat, you know? So that was really cool for me. I'm looking forward to knitting that soon. Those socks soon. But my friend spotted this. And we thought, oh, those are pretty colors and that's a lot of yarn. And it's only $5. And then we're looking closer and we can kind of see the label a little bit, but it was kind of tucked away from things at the time. So the two of us are like, okay, we're thinking one of us is going to buy this. So we commit to tearing a little hole in the plastic because it was going to come home with us anyway. And we look, and I thought it was going to be like an acrylic, like a brushed acrylic blend. This is 85% mohair. This is vintage mohair yarn. It is 85% mohair, 13% wool, and 2% nylon. It is Harmony yarn, because I saw the goat on the label, because Kara was like, we saw pretty color, we thought that would be good for a gift for somebody that we know. And then she says, oh look, there's a sheep on the label. And then I said, oh my goodness, that's a mohair goat. That's an Angora goat. So then we open it up, and it's, well, we didn't open it up at the time. We just read the label. It is 3 50-gram balls of this super chunky mohair, which is pretty wild. It's kind of felted, but not wildly so. And each of these 50-gram balls is 70 meters. So at first I thought maybe this was a sweater quantity. It is not. You could maybe get like a super chunky vest out of it if you're small. But I'm thinking that this is going to be a couple fun hats if we find somebody who is not sensitive to mohair, and just kind of like a fun novelty yarn. And this is the brand Filatura di Croce, Bella, Italy, imported from Germany. Here's the label on one side. Here's the label on another side. And every stashed amount of this yarn on Ravelry is also like, found this in a thrift store. This was given to me by somebody's aunt, so I don't know when this is from, but I don't think in the last 10 years. So this had a fun, 2.5 weeks in the freezer. And I bought it, but it might end up with Carolyn if she decides that she wants it. We're not sure yet. She's currently knitting her first ever sweater, by the way. So when she finishes it, I will very proudly show you photos, but I'm thinking this would be like held with a nice superwash merino, something really soft in maybe like a pink or a purple. Held with it will be a really nice chunky beanie gift for somebody. Maybe like 3 chunky hats, or a chunky hat and then a circle scarf for a friend who is not sensitive to mohair. But in the meantime, until an idea appears to myself or Carolyn, I have this really fun find to show you guys. And again, it was $5 for 150 grams of mohair. You don't get that anymore. So yeah, so those are my good budget-friendly acquisitions. Now to a bunch of not budget-friendly acquisitions. Okay, so in June, I turned 25, and I mentioned this on the podcast, and my friend Mary McIntyre, who has been a longtime viewer of this channel, sent me a birthday gift card to Wabi Sabi, a local Ottawa yarn store, which was so generous of her and so kind. And I actually used it this week for the first time to buy this. So Wabi Sabi is doing a trunk show for the indie dyer Alley Cat Yarns, which is a local Ottawa dyer. And I think their colors are really lovely, but I was trying not to buy a ton of sock yarn because I've bought a lot of sock yarn this summer and my sock mojo was still kind of MIA. But I was looking just in case, because I thought, Mary said buy yourself a special skein. And I thought a trunk show would maybe be the good place for a special skein. And then I found that Alley Cat Yarns has a really, really cool, really special base called Ontario Sock. And it's a Dorset Cheviot blend with mohair. And they source the wool from Ontario flocks of sheep and the mohair from Ontario flocks of Angora goats. And as far as I'm aware, there's only 2 flocks of Angora goats in all of Ontario, which is like a big place. Ontario is big, you guys. And so one of those, I'm pretty sure, oh God, So this is from the Elora flock of sheep in Elora, Ontario. The other one is in Vankleek Hill, which is like a 45-minute drive from here. But I've never been because they've been closed for visits for COVID reasons, but normally you can go like look at the goats. And then Vankleek Hill, it's, the farm there, they make their own yarn as well. And it is Les Belles Bouclettes is the name. I'll have them linked down below. One day I will use their yarn, but in the meantime, I want to go like meet the goats before I want to really take some time to peruse their stock, meet the goats, talk to the people who run it, and that's a tangent. I love the idea of this. It's so local. I mean, Ontario is huge, so like this is still coming from a couple 100 kilometers away, certain parts of it, but it is the fiber grown here. The yarn was milled and spun in Ontario and then dyed by Alley Cat Yarns here in Ottawa. So the mohair is local and therefore they're treated well because there are a lot of ethical concerns with mohair production. The sheep were raised here and it is this, and I think it's naturally dyed, but it is this absolutely stunning like reddish orange in the color persimmon, if you didn't see when I held it up the first time. And I couldn't say no to this. It felt so perfect. I have been saying that I would really like to start knitting with more local fiber. And then I keep not doing that. I keep getting distracted by shiny, pretty things or like Canadian indie dyers, but with fiber that are still sourced abroad, which makes a lot of sense, and I don't fault anybody for that because I know that supply can be quite difficult to come by. And also, I don't think that there's a lot of merino, if any, produced here in Canada. We're more of a meat-producing sheep country, which is why you've got a lot of Dorset available, typically, because that's typically a breed of sheep that's raised for their meat. And then the fleece, I think, is often just discarded. So a lot of Canadian yarn producers, and they're a hardy sheep, which works well in our climate, but you're usually looking at fleece that is discarded for meat production, which is good that if you're gonna kill an animal, raise an animal, kill an animal, you're using every part of it. But it means you're not getting a lot of merino here. So this, I think, is supposed to be a very hard-wearing sock blend because Cheviot and Dorset are two very hard-wearing fibers. And then mohair is apparently a very strong addition to a sock as well. So thank you very, very kindly, Mary. I love my birthday gift and I appreciate it very much. And I want to cast on these socks so badly, but I got priorities right now. I'm pretty sure this is also going to be knit on my 2mm needles, again, to make sure it's dense, because this doesn't have nylon and it's non-superwash. It doesn't have nylon to make them last as long as possible, but I'm pretty sure that these are either going to be a pair of Grow socks by Fiber Tales or a pair of Humleby socks by Fiber Tales. I feel like this is a color that would really shine in that. Like, isn't this amazing? Also, while I was there, I had this whole plan. I ordered this online for pickup, and I used my gift card. And my plan was to walk there, avoid eye contact with all the yarn in the store, and then say, like, hi to the women who work there, and then leave. And then, of course, the first thing I see when I get in there is a wall of Alley Cat Yarns sock yarns, and I spent 40 minutes in this store. But while I was admiring the wall of sock minis, someone came up and said hi, a viewer. So, hi Maddie, if you're watching. Sorry I was so weird the first few seconds. I don't expect people to notice me from my knitting podcast. Like, very small slice of internet we have going on here. But I had a fun conversation with the viewer who was also eyeing this. How funny is that? Such a beautiful color. And yeah, I also ran into someone who watches the podcast way back during finals last year in March at the coffee shop on campus. So hi Kaylee if you're still watching. But yeah, I don't do well with spontaneous social interaction. I like to think I recover somewhat quickly, but I'm a deer in headlights the first time someone says, hi, are you Nice Guy Knitting? And then I'm like, anyway, yeah, I am. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful sock yarn. Thank you, Mary McIntyre. While I was there, I ended up grabbing these as well. So this is the Smooth Sock base by Alley Cat Yarns, which is an 85 merino, 15% nylon, and it's very, very plump, very, very soft. I have intentions of using those minis to do color work from Charlotte Stone's Charming Colorwork Socks book, which was sent to me. I got a pre-release copy sent to me by Charlotte Stone and her publishers, so thank you again, Charlotte. I'm still obsessed with your book. I think you know that. We text. But originally, I really wanted to cast on the sheep socks first. And I was going to have that as one of my travel knitting projects, but then I thought about it and I didn't want to bring multiple little balls of yarn and a book with me for the many legs of this trip I will be doing. And so I did, okay, one thing at a time. And while I was there though, I was looking at different yarns and thinking this would be fantastic for all my new colorwork sock patterns. And oh my goodness, I was trying to find a good photo of a particular pattern to show you guys, and I forgot that it's literally the cover pattern. I could have just showed you the cover of the book. Love that for me. Okay, so my thought is I will make the Tiptoe Through the Tulips socks with green yarn that I have in stash because I love the color green. And I'm thinking this will be a tulip color for one sock, and this will be a tulip color for the other sock. So I will have a really cute pair of like not wildly matching tulip socks. I don't know, I'm really happy that I got them. I also got this little guy who, again, I think he looks brown on screen. In the store, this read to me as more brown than it is in person, which is funny because I spent like a good 20 minutes looking at minis, which came in pretty much every color. I almost got an orange one, but then I thought, no, you're just thinking orange because you love these. In the store, this read to me as more brown, but I think it's funny that it looks actually in real life very similar to the color that my mom already got me, which I think is a testament to how much I really enjoy this kind of burgundy, Cabernet, kind of dark red, purple. But this I think I'm still going to use it for my original purpose, which is for the coffee socks in this book. This is the coffee break sock pattern. And so I'm going to use that mini to make those. I don't know what main color I'll use yet. I'll figure that out later, but exciting stuff. So those are my acquisitions from Wabi Sabi. That's not true. I also got 2 balls of Lang Yawal Super Sock in the color white because these were on clearance, so they were like 30% off. So I got 2 balls of white for $8 each. And this comes with, you can see it on the band. I don't want to dig it out of this little tube, but there's reinforcement nylon thread that comes in here, which I think will be useful. And I'm going to use this as the main color for the sheep socks in Charlotte Stone's book, because I do have white Sisu Senna's yarn, but I hate it for color work, and so I want to use a yarn that I actually really enjoy for color work. It was on sale, and I'm always going to need white for color work socks. That's what I got from Wabi Sabi. Apparently when you order from Alley Cat Yarns, they give you some stitch markers as well. So that was fun. I have a few of these white light bulbs and then a few of these little cat ones. So add it to the stitch marker haul because I'm kind of always losing them, so always useful. And then while I was walking home from Wabi Sabi, because it was beautiful weather and I decided to make the hike, I popped into a local store called Maker House, which is all Canadian-made goods because I wanted candles and I didn't want to ship candles to myself because shipping is expensive because candles are heavy. So I went in and grabbed a couple candles for our household as we lean into cozy season, and I saw this bag, which is meant to be a produce bag, all these mushrooms on it, and I bought it as a project bag because I think it's really cute. It's got a good heft. It has one of these drawstring bags, and it was $14, which is, because knitting bags are expensive, and that's not to say that they shouldn't be because there's a lot that goes into them, but this was so cute, good price, Canadian made, I don't know. I apparently was in a shopping mood that particular Saturday. And while I was checking out, I had my Wabi Sabi bag, and the cashier asked, oh, do you want another bag for these? And I said, nah, I think that the yarn will be a good insulation buffer for the candles and then also for this. And the shopkeeper said, oh, is this going to be a knitting bag? And I said, yeah. And then they said, oh, I use these bags for that too. And I was like, nice. So that was cool. Last acquisitions. I ordered yarn from Color Mart, which if you've ever watched any of Typical Bliss's / Tiffany Lou's videos, I'm sure you're familiar with Color Mart already, but they are a commercial knitting, like dead stock retailer. So they buy the mill ends from mills that produce yarns for machine knit, like high-end sweaters, and then whatever yarn isn't bought by those luxury brands to make their sweaters, Color Mart buys to sell to us hand knitters. And so you get a lot of fancy fibers for highly discounted prices. And they've been on my radar for a long time because I like the idea of buying dead stock, like stuff that would otherwise be thrown out or tossed or discarded, and making use of it. I like discounts and I like cones, but didn't have a project for any of them, and you can't always tell the color you're getting. And I've watched a lot of other podcasters like Tiffany or Florence of Handmade by Florence talk about how it's really kind of a crapshoot sometimes what you're going to get from them. But so as some of you know, I knit myself a fortune sweater earlier this year, and I wanted to knit myself a second one because it's my favorite sweater, just full stop, in gray and in a more substantial gray. And I had a yarn that I had in stash. It's the Clémence Surrey Alpaca Silk by the Canadian dyer Emilie et Philomene, and I wanted a lace weight strand of wool to hold with it in order to make that sweater, to make a more winterized version. And because this Surrey silk is thinner than the Drops brushed alpaca silk that I used to make my original one. And I was having a lot of trouble finding a gray, like a light gray lace weight wool yarn that I wanted for that. I really just was not finding one here in Canada or that would ship to me. So I checked Color Mart on a whim one day, and they had, in the exact color that I was looking for that matched my Surrey silk, a lace weight, I think it was like 75% cashmere, 25% merino yarn. And this is the color Perla, and you can see one of these is the strand of Surrey silk and one of these is the Color Mart yarn. So, and it was 50 grams of that for, I think, $26 Canadian, which is kind of a lot for 50 grams, but I was getting 630 meters, and I waffled about it for a while, but it was the exact color, the exact meterage, because I have 600 grams of the Surrey silk. Oh my god, 600 meters of the Surrey silk. And the exact weight, like it was just a match made in heaven. So I got it, and then there was a discount for first-time buyers. It was like 20 or 25% off. So I looked around, and then they had this gray wild silk yarn available as well, which apparently was an uncommon find for them. And this is fingering weight wild silk in the color Perla. This is 150 grams. It's a fingering weight. And I looked up wild silk because I didn't know what that meant. And apparently there's more than one type of silkworm in the world. So most silk that we use is mulberry silk from the bombyx moth, which is domesticated, and that's what they mostly like boil alive to get the silkworm cocoon fiber. And there are certainly a lot of brands that use suppliers who don't, they're like piece silks that don't kill the worms, but there's just kind of a lot of ethical issues with silk manufacturing. And that's not to say that I don't buy silk or use it, like this Surrey silk has silk in it, the Noro has silk in it, but when presented with the option of wild silk, which is apparently just harvested by looking for it, there are other moths that make silk. And then you just wait for them to leave, and then they go find the nests and the cocoons. And apparently the reason why it's not as common is because obviously it's not as commercial, but also apparently wild silk is very difficult to dye over, so you have to go looking for moths and their larvae and like the little guys who they're different, many different species, and their cocoons are different colors. Like there's apparently a wild silkworm that has a bright red cocoon. How cool is that? Anyway, hard to dye. It's not as you know, as big of a thing, especially since commercial silk is softer and people like it. Like, why mess with something that a lot of people are happy with? But I love this color. I wanted to do a fingering weight silk thing. I feel like this is a good sub for so many different summer patterns, and I love gray. And I really liked the idea of wild silk. So I got a cone of this. I actually got two. I don't know why I bought two. Like, I'm not mad about it. It wasn't cheap, but this feels like a novelty yarn, like a once in a lifetime type thing. Love the color, and I will get use of this, and it's going to become a cumulus tee. But I don't understand why I got two, but I'm going to use them to make a cumulus tee, so it's fine, and then leftovers will make a very fancy scrunchie for myself. The one thing about the original wool yarn that I got is that they accidentally sent me, and I wound it up. They accidentally sent me the wrong one. It was mislabeled in the cone. So they have a fingering weight base and they have a lace weight base. And I ordered the lace weight, but the cones were mislabeled, so they went looking, they saw, oh, this one's labeled lace weight, and they sent it to me, but it was actually fingering weight. So I ran out of it closer to like the 400 meter range, and then I was very confused because I knew that I bought one that was meant to be 630 meters. And I did unwrap the cone and think this definitely looks more like a fingering weight than a lace weight. But I ordered it from the UK. And I simply was not going to like send it back. Like I was like, okay, well, maybe I just misunderstood what a lace weight was. And I started winding it. And I still think that this is going to get me, ooh, what a fuzz, the sweater and the heft and the drape that I want. It's going to be warmer than my other one. It's a beautiful color. They meld so nicely. But I emailed them saying, hi, I think your meterage might be off because I ordered this one that's a lace weight that's meant to be 630 meters. And I got one that was substantially less, and I heard back so quickly, like the next day, and they said, oh, we're so sorry about that. We think we might have sent you the fingering weight one by accident. So would you prefer that we send you more of the fingering weight, or would you prefer, like, does it work for your pattern, or would you prefer to just get the lace weight instead? And I already wound this up. I was not going to unwind it. I have now committed to a Surrey silk plus fingering weight fortune sweater. So I said, thank you so much, the fingering weight, please. And that is on its way to me now. So the mistake was made in the first place, but I was very impressed by their customer service, very impressed by the product. And they actually sent me this 23 gram mystery hank. I guess it's like a little freebie sample type thing, which I think they do with all orders. Like I didn't in any way indicate that I have a social media presence, so like there's no way that this would be sent just to me. And I think somewhere on my thing it said like, oh yeah, a little new person sample. This isn't labeled. It feels not like wool. It feels more like a cotton or viscose plus silk. So, and I think it's a DK, which I like, but also contributes to my clutter. Like, what am I going to do with this? Make a scrunchie, I guess? Or like a little Sophie scarf type deal? Except I don't like garter, so I would freestyle a seat stitch one. Does this work for me? It's like a little kerchief. Maybe. So that's nice. But now I'm consumed with what do I do with this? So that's cool. What I did think was fun and funky was okay, I'm not sponsored by them. I want to make that clear. I just think that this is funny and I wanted to share it with you guys. They sent me this book of samples. And I guess like explain how they work because it's not a standard yarn manufacturer retailer, like they're buying dead stock. With all of their, I guess, most common bases, which if you're buying dead stock that's like leftover from a yarn mill, like how do you have recurring things? I guess like yarn mills make certain things and then designers buy them and then sometimes they're leftover and then Color Mart buys it. Not fully understanding how this works, but that's okay. They sent me this book of samples so you can feel it and have an idea of what your options are, which I think is really funny. And I like this idea. Like, I like being able to, you know, I guess sample them, feel them. Except, what am I going to do with these now? Like, beyond show you guys, I guess I'm gonna have to take up embroidery. Like, I feel like this would be great for embroidery. Oh, my roommate does cross stitch. Maybe I'll give some to her. But I'm like, these are fun, except now what? One thing about Color Mart, everything's limited edition. Colors, who knows? Softness, who knows? Because these yarns are manufactured for machine knitting, they're heavily oiled up for spinning. So, oh, More Knits. More Knits also has knit from Color Mart and influenced this decision from me. But Freya, Florence, and Tiffany have all said that sometimes you need to wash the yarn a few times to get all the oil out, and then it blooms and softens significantly. And that's part of the discount that you're getting. I think the Color Mart somewhere said that they offer, like if you don't want a cone, they offer washing and winding. But I have a winder and I couldn't be bothered, I will wash it myself. So those are all my acquisitions. Those are my trip planning plans. I think immediate priorities in terms of knitting. I want to finish my grandfather's socks, finish my mom's top, knit myself some acorn socks, knit myself a hat, finish the crochet afghan, which has seen no work for me whatsoever in the past. I still somehow made it to an hour in the past month, and finish that by the end of October. And then we'll go from there. So thank you for taking this time to sit and chat with me. I hope that you enjoyed it. I am going to finish my readings and then go to class. But happy autumn, happy October, happy Socktober for those who observe, and wish you all well. Okay, bye everyone.